Hello, everybody. I'm Ken Tucker with Changescape Web. Today, I'm excited to have a good friend of mine, Joe Pallardy from Pallardy Electric. Sorry about that, Joe.
Easy
How
for
you
you to
doing
say.
today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. A little tired today. It's been a busy, crazy day. So,
It has.
yeah. Yeah. So, Joe, you you're an electrical contractor and you do both residential and commercial. So, just talk about, some of the different things that you do.
Okay. We do a lot of residential, just about anything electrically related in a residence that you can think of, we can help you with. We do a lot of, panel changes, panel upgrades. We do a lot of lighting work. So if there's a space in your home that's not lit very well, that you'd like to have, you know, fit your use better, the lighting, should fit the use of what you're using the room for. A lot of that recently, since people have been turning certain homes in their houses into home offices.
Hmm.
So, there's been a lot of work in that area due to that shift of working from home. Also, we do data wiring, video, audio data.
Yeah, I would imagine that that's probably picked up too with people reconfiguring their houses to create a home office environment as well.
Yes, it has. We've ran several, Cat 5 or 6 data lines to rooms, so that because a lot of corporate environments require VPNs and stuff, and they want it to be as secure as possible. So taking the router out of the loop, the wireless router out of the loop always helps. And so there's a lot of that going on. We do security cameras if you have want to be able to see what's going on at your house when you're not there. We can help with that, and that's
Okay.
a lot of what we do on the residential side.
Okay. Yeah. So you talked about panel upgrades. So why would somebody need to upgrade their electrical panel?
It depends on what they're doing. Sometimes it's because they're finishing a basement. Sometimes it's because they're adding a significant load, like a hot tub out back, or maybe their furnace is needing to be replaced, and they want to switch from a gas furnace to an electric furnace or a heat pump type of situation, and which requires a bigger electrical service.
Okay.
So those are a couple things why people usually end up upgrading their panels. Sometimes it's just because they're old and outdated. So there's a couple brands out there that have specifically have a lot of issues. So if you
Yeah.
happen to own one of those, then it's a good idea to get rid of them.
Yeah. So can you tell folks what those brands are and so they can go out and check, and if they have any
Yeah.
issue, they probably ought to call you and make sure they're all good, right?
Yeah. Well, the biggest offender is called Federal Pacific, and it was really popular in the 70s to the early 80s.
Okay.
A lot of building happening in St. Charles County and St. Louis County during that period of time. And so there's a lot of those panels out there.
Hmm.
And you'll see the FPE or the Federal Pacific, and it'll say Stab Lock sometimes on it, because that was kind of the model name of their panels. Those panels, or the circuit breakers in particular, have a tendency to not trip when they should trip, which is obviously a bad situation.
Right.
So those have been, pretty much anytime you have a home inspector in your home and he sees one of those, they're going to request it to be changed.
Okay.
Some other ones that aren't great are the Zinsco style Sylvania panels. Have some issues with those. And if you still have any of those Pushmatic panels, those are even older. Those are from the 50s and 60s, but we still see them sometimes. So.
Okay. Now you're licensed in both St. Charles and St. Louis counties too, right? So.
Yes, we are licensed in St. Charles County, St. Louis County, St. Louis City, and Jefferson County.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. I know you do a lot of work with lighting, and I know more so on the commercial side of things, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But I know you also do a lot residentially. So, are you talking like recess lights and things like that? And obviously people, might want to have a dimmer installed on certain lights and timers and things like that. Is that what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Recess lights are very popular in residential, in residences. And we also help a lot of times with exterior lighting for residences as well. that usually kind of goes hand in hand with the security cameras because, although a lot of security cameras out there will work in darkness because they have their own infrared illumination, you don't get true color usually for most cameras. There's a few out there now that do that, but most cameras, when they kick into that night mode, they don't give you true color rendition. So if you're trying to give the police a description of a person, you don't know what color their clothes were. So it's better to have a well-lit area. So motion lights around the exterior of your home, motion activated lights in conjunction with the security cameras are a good combination.
So when you work with security cameras, do you provide the cameras or do you install cameras that people buy? How does that
Yeah,
work?
most of the time we provide them as well. A few times we will install some customer provided ones. They just have to understand that we can't warranty the product if we don't supply it. So
Okay.
that's the only issue with it. But yeah, we've installed customer supplied cameras.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do you do like any outdoor lighting, like patios or
Yes.
pool areas and things like that as well?
Yeah, landscape, low voltage landscape lighting is another popular thing, especially, people have been, before the winter hit, everybody was trapped at home. So people were making their spaces a lot nicer, spending some time and money, in backyard patios. We're getting like landscape lighting, also like some people call them festoon lights or party lights, like the string lights that
Oh yeah.
usually go across, a space overhead. Those have become really popular.
Okay.
And they've got those now that change colors by a remote and all that kind of stuff. So there's
Yeah.
lots of different things we can do in a space. That's why, we almost always, when I give an estimate, I almost always come out to the house, the space, and look at the space, and that way I can give them some ideas and hear what they are looking for, and then give them some of my own ideas and see what they would like to do.
Yeah. So speaking of lights changing color and things like that, do you do anything with home automation?
We do. We don't do a lot of that work. It depends on the level. So we've worked with a couple different home automation companies in the past, and we do a lot of their like cabling and wiring for them.
Okay.
And then the automation company will, provide the hardware and stuff. So if that's on the bigger end of things. On the smaller end of things, they have Wi-Fi enabled devices now, like switches and receptacles that are very easy to kind of get started in a home. So, like, say you don't want to spend the money to make your entire house automated, you can just pick a couple switches and a couple receptacles at first, and get started with a system like that. And that has become a lot less expensive recently. So yeah, that's another thing that we can do is help people with who want to get some level of automation.
Yeah. And I know you talk a lot about LED lighting. Is that a big thing for houses and,
Yeah,
living space?
LED lighting has really just taken over the marketplace pretty much. First coming on the scene, I'd say about maybe 10 years ago or so, and there was only a couple styles and they were very expensive. But I mean, they have just continued to get better every year. They get more lumens out of every watt that they use. So the lumen per watt efficacy is what they call it. It just keeps going up. So that means they're getting constantly more efficient. So yeah, it's pretty much to the point now where I can't remember the last time we installed a light that wasn't LED.
Hmm.
So
Wow. Well, and also the color of the light, is a big factor too. I mean, there's a reason why the incandescent bulb was so popular because it actually does a pretty good approximation of, sunlight, right? And
uh,
so,
it
I
gives
mean,
a warm tone of light that people are very comfortable with, especially in homes. So that warm tone, so they that's one of the things you have to pay attention to when you're buying LED bulbs and or lights. You have to look at what they call the color temperature of the light, and that is a number on a scale of degrees Kelvin. 2700 is the warm tone that looks a lot like an incandescent. And then
okay.
as you climb that scale upwards, going from 2700 to 3000, that's a little more white. 4,000 degrees Kelvin is a neutral white, is what they consider. And that's what we use often a lot in commercial environments, like office settings. We use a neutral white, like 4,000 degree Kelvin. And then as you climb up the scale further to about 5,000 or 5,500 degrees Kelvin, it starts to get more of a blue tone to it. But that is actually closer to real sunlight. Real sunlight's about 5,500 or so degrees Kelvin.
Really? Okay. Maybe
So
it's more like candlelight then.
yes, it is more like candlelight. But we've all been trained, at least most of us who are a little older and grew up with incandescent lights. We've always had that warm tone of light in our homes.
Right.
So it's still preferred by most people, especially in their residences. So we still recommend like a 3,000 degree Kelvin color temperature in most homes.
Okay.
And then up the scale. Really, the only people who usually request like 5,000 or higher are like jewelers who want, when they want the light to shine on their product and look the most like sunlight and stuff. So,
Right.
So there are certain reasons we can use different color temperatures, and it depends a lot on what the customer wants.
So do you use different color temperatures in different rooms? Like in the kitchen, I would assume you might want to have a brighter color rather than a warmer color like you might want to have in your family room or living room.
So most of the time we try to keep the color temperature the same in a home, especially if it's an area. Now, if one area is more isolated from another, it doesn't hurt to use a different color temperature. But when you have two different color temperatures of light kind of spilling into one space, it's a little noticeable, and I think it doesn't look real well. One of the things that kind of touching on was with color temperature, they've done a lot of research about color temperature of light and its effect on people and their mood.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've got lights now where you can change the color temperature in the light for the different times of day, or like in your bedroom you can put in, like Philips Hue is a product that has a bulb that can do many different colors of light.
Oh, wow.
So besides just making it like red and blue, like disco, kind of stuff, it can also just change like the color temperature so that it makes you feel more awake in the morning, if you use the right color temperature, or, in the evening, if you're sitting there in bed reading, you can shift it more to the yellow side of the spectrum. How I'm sure everybody's heard about the blue light and how it's not good for you before you go to sleep, but
Right.
shifting to that yellow side of the spectrum, takes a lot of the blue out of the light. So, that's actually an area that they're kind of starting to use those lights that can change color temperatures for different moods and different times of day.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So before I forget, I know you're an astronomy buff, and I have a minor degree in astronomy. So we've never really had much of a chance to talk about that. But one of these days, we're going to have to go out and do some observing. It's been a long time since I've done anything like that. Obviously, I don't want to do it in this temperature. Although the sky conditions, if it's clear, when it's cold like this,
Yeah, that's
you're going to get.
Usually the best observing was when it's really cold. But
yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So let's talk about the commercial side of your business. Tell me a little bit more about what you guys do. I know you do a lot with lighting there, and can help people take advantage of the Ameren rebates, where they can save a lot of money on their lighting bills and things like that. So just kind of talk about that.
Yeah. So there is a lot of, obviously kind of a lot of what we talked about in residential applies in commercial as well. You need to have the light fit the use of the space. And also just efficiency upgrades. You mentioned the Ameren rebate program. That is a program that exists from Ameren UE that gives a rebate on your electric bill for making lights more efficient. And a lot of people will say, like, well, why does Ameren want to make lights more efficient? It's less money for them. But it's what they're trying to do is stave off the need to build a new power plant, because those are really expensive.
Right.
And so they're trying to delay as long as possible them building a new power plant, by making people, or incentivizing people to use less electricity. So any non-residents, so pretty much commercial places of business, schools, churches, manufacturing facilities, any of those kind of places will qualify. Currently, the rebate is only for interior lighting, so parking lot lights don't get a rebate right now.
Okay.
But yeah, the amount of the rebate varies, so I can't tell you exactly. It's going to be this percentage, but we can, we do give free estimates on that, so we can work up what the cost will be, and we can tell you how much the rebate will be and everything. So there is a good size rebate.
Well, and with the LED lights, they last longer too. So, I mean, you probably can calculate what kind of return on investment somebody's going to get. So they may need to put out some initial money up front, but it's going to save them. You can calculate out how much money it's going to save them over the life of that light bulb.
Yeah, it's going to save them energy costs to operate.
Yeah.
And it's going to save them maintenance costs for not having to replace, the bulb every 2 to 3 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of savings there. Plus, if it's laid out right, it's going to be a more pleasantly lit area most of the time.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pluses to it.
So I know you talk a lot about a particular light, and I'm drawing a blank on it, but like in a warehouse, for example, how does somebody know if they have a light that they probably should take a look at, and where they could get really a strong payback with the Ameren rebate program?
I think you're talking about like the metal halides.
There you go.
Those fixtures were the ones that kind of had a dome sort of, and they have a bulb on the inside that's about the size of a football almost, and they take a while to start up. So when they turn on and they kind of blink, and then they're really dim for about the first minute or two, and then they get gradually brighter. Those metal halides are easy money back. I mean, if we replace those fixtures with LEDs, the customer is going to see a reduction in energy consumption. Plus again, the lifespan, probably have better lighting almost always. When we switch over to an LED fixture, because besides the amount of lumens that's coming out, most LED fixtures control the light a lot better. So the light's actually going down where it's useful. Whereas those metal halides had a bulb that threw out light in 360 degrees, and then they put those big dome reflectors on them to try to get most of the light to go down where they wanted to.
Yeah.
And it's less of a problem now with LEDs, because just the way they're made, they control the light a lot better.
Yeah. Okay. Do you do any work with like dimmer switches and things like that where, I think about when I taught at the St. Charles Community College, everything there is on a dimmer, where if the classroom's not being used, the lights automatically kick off to save energy. Is that something you work with at all?
Yeah, occupancy sensors and lighting control systems. We can do those kind of projects as well. They have lots of, from as simple as a switch style occupancy sensor that goes in place of your wall switch that will, automatically turn the lights on when you come in a room and turn them off after a set amount of time. That's on the simpler side of things. And the more advanced side of things, they have occupancy systems that have daylight harvesting. So if it's in a room that's got a lot of windows where you get a lot of good natural light, it can actually dim the lights down during the day so that they're just supplementing the natural light. And then at nighttime, when the natural light's not there, they'll come up to a full brightness. So there's lots of neat things on the energy conservation side of lighting that, and they've been there for a while, but they've become more popular and less expensive.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's fascinating. It just seems to me, well, when we look at wasted energy, most of that actually, a lot of people would probably attribute that to automobiles and things like that, but we waste so much energy through our buildings, that just taking some simple steps like this, can save a lot of money. And like you said, it's a win-win the way Ameren set it up for businesses, because it's helping them avoid a situation that they can't really afford to get into right now, like you said, with building a power plant and the regulatory requirements they have to go through, and the time frame that it takes to get one of those approved takes forever anyway. And then you're talking about millions, maybe billions of dollars.
Yeah, it takes decades for them to get a plan through all the different, like you're talking about the regulatory process with the federal government and the
Yeah.
EPA and all that stuff. It
Yeah.
takes a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually worked on a team that wrote the software system that the Department of Agriculture actually runs for putting power plants in place. So I have a little bit
Wow.
of familiarity with that. So you mentioned something earlier I wanted to ask you about, and I should know this because I do come from an IT background a long, long time ago, but networking was never my thing. I was always more on the software side of things. You talk about Cat 5 and Cat 6. What's the difference? And, is there a reason to have one over the other? Are they interchangeable?
So they're not exactly interchangeable. Cat 5, can only go up to, they say 100 megabits per second. Cat 6 is supposed to be 1,000. Now, on short runs, you can make Cat 5e perform pretty close to, the Cat 6 level. So it depends a little bit on the application, but the cost of Cat 6 cabling has come down quite a bit recently, and it's really not, you're not saving much money anymore by going with like a Cat 5e cable and connectors versus a Cat 6. So pretty much all of our new installs for the about last year or two have pretty much been Cat 6.
Okay.
The only times we usually use Cat 5 anymore is when we know it's dedicated phones only versus data.
Okay.
So we still use that.
So that makes me think there are a lot of offices out there, as well as home offices, that have been wired, and there's still a good reason to have a wired connection to your computer, especially
Yeah.
for business purposes. And a lot of people are probably trying to adapt to situations when they've created a home office. So are you saying, if I understood correctly, if you've upgraded your internet service, because a lot of people have during this time frame, because people are working from home, their kids going to school, having to log on and live stream stuff, and so a lot of people have upgraded their internet service. Does that mean that Cat 5 could actually be capping your performance?
The chances of that are relatively minor.
Okay.
Usually the choke point is not the cabling. The choke point's usually like the router
Okay.
that you have in your home. So, but they keep getting better and better. But for the average home, your choke point is your router, especially if you're connecting over wirelessly to your router.
Yeah.
So you will always be able to get faster with a wired connection, at least, for now. I mean, maybe that changes in the future, but
Yeah.
for right now, if you have a spot, whether it's a TV that you want to stream 4K content to, or whether it's a computer, like a desktop computer that you just have lots of information traveling back and forth on, like you use a lot of CAD programs to a server, something like that. The fastest way to do it is still a hardwired connection,
Yeah.
and it's a little more secure as well. So
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So it's probably something that people might want to reach out and talk to you about, and just have them evaluate your situation, because even, well, cables go bad as well, right? So I mean, what kind of time frame would you recommend somebody, if they haven't had their building wired in 10 years, should they have somebody come in and check it, or 5 years or something like that?
for the most part, unless it's been like messed with, physically damaged, or most of the time the cabling, if it was working good when it was installed, it's probably still going to be there. But you mentioned like a year thing, so like 10 years ago, Cat 5e was the standard, Cat 5 was the standard, and 5e was just kind of coming out, and you know and now there's Cat 6. So it depends, I guess, a lot on how you're using the network and stuff. And if your bandwidth needs are growing quickly, then it might be the situation where you could benefit from that. We're not networking experts either, just as a quick disclaimer, but we do a lot of work with companies who are networking experts, and they have us, pull the cables for them and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
we work with, and, so you learn some just by working with them, a lot. But
Yeah.
for the most part, I would say probably existing cabling is not going to go bad. It's just that you're probably going to outgrow its bandwidth, potentially, if you're the kind of company that uses a lot of bandwidth up.
Okay. So we had Bill Brink from Classic Signs on a while, back earlier in January, I believe. And he mentioned to me, and something I didn't know that you did. He does he does a lot of outdoor lighting, I guess, for parking lot lighting and things like that. And he said that you actually do a lot of that work for him or with him. So I was surprised to hear that. I didn't ever really know that about you.
So we have a pretty good working relationship with Bill. I've known him for quite a number of years. And when there's like a more of a maintenance kind of situation with some parking lot lights, because he's got the boom trucks and the equipment. So when it's just a more of a maintenance situation, a company wants us to come replace some bulbs or something like that, I'll just refer that work right to Bill, with Bill Brink and Classic Signs.
Okay.
Because they handle it very well. On bigger projects, when somebody wants us to replace the light heads and stuff like that, or need to run some wiring to signs, maybe some new light locations, we definitely help them with that. Those kind of situations. So yeah, we have a pretty good relationship with Bill and Classic Signs.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So what about who's also a chamber member, by the way?
Yeah.
What else do you guys do in the realm of commercial electrical?
So a lot of tenant finishes. So when a company moves into a new space and they need to have it, changed around a little bit to suit their needs, so we do that. We finished up a plaza called the Colonnade Plaza on Manchester. It's just about less than a mile east of 270 on Manchester Road. And there was a complete exterior renovation of the plaza. And so we did all new lighting under the soffits, new parking lot pole lights. We even upgraded their service because it was an older style service, and the city of Creve Coeur was making them upgrade that. So we, new service to the entire building. It was like 1,600 amps. Lots of different stuff on the commercial side. Again, with the cameras, a lot of business owners want to be able to keep tabs on their business when they're not there.
Yeah.
Also, some access control too. If you want to be able to give your employees little keychain fobs that allow them into the building, and you can control when they can get into the building. And then if an employee quits and doesn't give you the key back, you're out like a $3 fob instead of having to call a locksmith out and change locks and stuff like that. So access control systems are pretty good answers for commercial businesses that have changing needs of who can access a building when, and that kind of thing. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah. And we were talking earlier, I've been in the chamber since 2008, and I think you said you've been in the chamber roughly most of the time since 2008 as well. How's your experience been with the Greater St. Charles County Chamber? It's
great. It's a great group of people, very active, lots of things going on. I don't know if you were able to make it out to that astronomy night that they had.
I know I didn't make it.
I wasn't able to make that either. Unfortunately, I was busy that evening, but I really wanted to. So just lots of fun things like that going on. It's I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah. Me too. I've always liked the way that this chamber, thinks about, just new and innovative ideas for businesses, and some cool new programs and things like that, and great staff, obviously, too. So,
yeah.
So, what else do we need to know about your business? Let me put up your contact information here for folks, so people can find you at Pallardy. I can't say that today. PallardyElectric.com. And the phone number, and I'm horrible at reading phone numbers, so I guarantee I'll butcher this too. So I'm going to read it really slow. 636-202-1794. So fortunately, that's a pretty easy number for me to read. So
yeah, well, you know, I was born and raised in St. Charles. You know, went to school here, went to Rankin, and then, you know, once I got out in the field a little bit, took my licensing exam, and then started the business, first evenings and weekends in 2000, and then in 2007 took it full time and been growing ever since. So
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Joe. I enjoyed talking with you. It was good to catch up
yeah.
with you. And,
Well, thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
yeah, no problem. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Goodbye.